So we think that FinTech is a really interesting place to invest. It's an interesting place to invest because it's part of the venture capital spectrum, which means there's very significant growth potential. These are typically early stage businesses in a very accelerated part of their growth curve. Now, FinTech venture capital are businesses that are doing things in the context of change within the financial services sector in Australia. That's a sector, financial services, that is Australia's largest tax-paying sector. It's the second largest employing sector in the country, and it's a sector, I think, that everyone knows that represents somewhere between 30 and 40% of the Australian ASX by market capitalisation. So it's incredibly important that people are thinking about how that sector is likely to change over the next decade. It's been a terrific sector for people to invest in for the past decade or two from both a yield and a growth perspective. But that growth profile looks a little more challenged over the next decade, and that's the role that we see FinTech as playing, as providing growth within people's portfolios. So the FinTech space is one that all large financial services organisations have a focus on. Technology is something that's been a part of financial services organisations for a century or more, and so it's misplaced to think that financial services organisations are not focused on this space. It's just very, very hard for a large incumbent organisation to deal with the speed of change that FinTech represents. Now, each of the 4 Australian banks have got very significant initiatives with a FinTech bent. Initiatives that are designed to make sure that their organisations are coping with change going forward. But each has its own very specific challenges. The biggest challenge that each of the banks has, and the biggest advantage that FinTech startups have, is, in the case of startups, agility. In the case of big banks, it's very challenging for them to move at the speed that startups can. And so that agility, that ability to come off a zero base, to design new products, to put products out into the marketplace, which have the potential to disrupt and reshape the sector, are the opportunities that FinTech startups are really pursuing. There are a series of examples of FinTech startups that have really been able to then partner with large Australian financial services organisations. A good example of that is a business called MacroView. Now, that's a business that we know well. It came through the original round of our accelerator program, and it's a thematic investing platform. So it allows retail investors to invest in themes. For example, a theme may be the emerging middle class in Asia, or it might be a theme may be socially responsible investing. Now, what MacroView does is provides a way for investors to invest in security stocks on exchanges in 18 markets around the world. So it's access not just to domestic, but far more so to international stocks. Now, why that's interesting is AMP, one of the largest financial services organisations in the country, saw MacroView and took a real interest and has become a significant investor in the MacroView business. That, to me, is an example of what we're going to see more and more of, is large organisations seeing the benefits and seeing the innovation coming out of early stage businesses and investing in them to capitalise on that.